Mobility project. We're at CrossFit now in Tucson. We just wrapped up a trainer course, and what I want to talk to you today about is some ideas about thoracic outlet syndrome diagnoses in your athletes. We see this kind of compression of this anterior compartment in athletes that sometimes do a lot of throwing, a lot of pulling. What ends up happening is that for some reason we get short here, and a lot of the tissues, especially this nervous tissue, gets trapped. The kind of technical part is that it gets trapped over the first rib and under the scalenes of the neck. And then it can cause all kinds of mechanical problems downstream that feel like numb hand, weak, painful elbow. So what do we do about it as an athlete? My athlete has this diagnosis, or they're just short and tight in here. What do I do about it? So we're thinking about trying to open up this compartment and open up and kind of remediate some of that tension on that brachial plexus. A lot of the original thinking, some of the best thing of this has come from Peter Edgelow out of San Francisco on his work on TOS, or thoracic outlet syndrome. But we're going to talk about for the realm of the athlete. So very first thing we're going to talk about is getting that posterior rib, not the first rib in the front, but this posterior first rib to drop down out of the way. Remember, it acts like a pump handle, and if it's elevated, it's going to be blocked, and it's going to rise up and compress when my arm comes up. And as that thing comes up, I need to have some room. And in fact, if you palpate right in here, there's a big bony thing there. That bone is your first rib. And if you put your arm over your head, you're going to be shocked at how tight that gets. So we've done this before. I've got a PVC pipe. I don't have a ball. What I'm going to do is just a ball on the end of this thing. I'm just going to take a towel and just flip it up over the end of this PVC pipe. And I'm going to jam this right into this position. If anything makes you worse, stop, remember. But the first thing that's going to happen is this goes up against the wall. I'm going to press this into the kind of meat of that kind of pocket of in this neck here. I'm going to drive back into it until I get a little pressure. I can kind of guide this with my hand. And then here's the key. Once this thing is loaded, I'm going to get a little arm overhead position. Try not to make the crazy horse eye. And then I'm just going to go here, try to external rotate. I'm going to press in. And what I'm going to try to do is get that rib to glide down towards my feet. We call this a caudal glide. It's going towards my feet. And I just hang out here and oscillate. I can even take a big breath here. Oh, which makes it even tighter, and release there. If it feels sketchy and weird, I stop and let the symptoms completely stop. If you're unsure about this, don't do it. It should be no problem. But for those of you who just want to improve your arm overhead position, this is radical. So arm up, reach up, getting that rib to glide and down. And quickly what you'll find is that the quality of that range of motion by cleaning up that first rib is remarkable. Usually we're doing a kind of a posterior anterior pressure, but you can see the difference. And that's given me room and cleaned up this last little corner here, which gives me a lot of movement options without loading those tissues. Second piece is that if my athletes are internally rotating, like they're throwers, for example, or they're pulling, and that shoulder comes forward, that shoulder ends up as a tensioner and translates through that brachial plexus, basically ends up winding up and tensioning those things. So here's what I do. One of the things I can do is try to get that shoulder to the back of the socket, and I can do that by taking our kettlebell, dropping that thing to the back of the socket, anchor the hand, and let that thing approximate there. A lot of times our pulling and throwing athletes have no reference where the back of the socket is. This is one of the reasons we have all our pullers do a lot of floor pressing. They get immediately that contact that shoulder should be back on the ground and pinned here, and then as I work, I have a better reference for what that shoulder looks like, and don't just kind of trash it forward. So I can get in this position, I can work on extra rotation, just giving this time to approximate to the back of the shoulder, and I should get full contact here. 1 or 2 minutes there. Other things I'm thinking about. Internal rotation, I should be able to fully internally rotate with my shoulder coming forward. I can wind that shoulder up, have it keeping it back, a good position, hand behind back. And since I'm here working on internal rotation, I might as well also be working on scalenes. And this is a nice way to kind of tack in or attach into the scalenes. And we do this by going to the side and up or down, depending, but I want to try to do is get here, and then I can get kind of a 2-for-1 and open up. Again, if I am stretching over an entrapped tissue, it may get worse, but I can anchor here and just take some big breaths. It also works sometimes to just go hand behind back here. Now that thing's wound up, and then I can just work in those corners. Most of the time I find that when I clean up the first rib, then I see better kind of mechanics, those scalenes let go instead of just beating to death the tissue. Also, if my athlete has forward head on neck position, then no wonder I'm getting short here. I've got to correct that. I can think double across ball through the thoracic spine, but I'm always managing my head position. My athlete's one of these guys, they throw or pull and their head is down. No wonder I'm so tight through this anterior compartment. I've got to make sure that I've got good neutral positioning, pressing my neck back, not shearing through the chin. This is no good. Press the neck back. Last thing I'm going to do go after the tissues right below the clavicle. This is the Subclavius Pec Minor. Hand the ball into that position. Get some pressure in there. Hand behind back. I can drive, working through those tissues. You can do this on the wall. And just working on even from going from here to more internal rotation. You can wind that up. Open those tissues up. See how that goes. Some ideas about working through this. Obviously, first ribs make a difference. But that's a place to start. And you should see, even in hanging here, I've got a lot more space on this side than the other side. Check it. We'll see you tomorrow.